a healthy community is full of healthy people, and that will attract other companies who want to come live here. If they see people who like where they live and are actively embracing all of the quality of life amenities that are available to them. I know, personally speaking, I'm a huge fan of our outdoor amenities, the trails around the river, and I'm a big mountain biker, and know that when I'm able to get out there and do the things I love, I'm a much better worker. So it all comes back to, I think, creating a healthy business environment when you've got a young, vibrant workforce that are all out there enjoying life. I think that bodes well for the business community.
Welcome to America's Healthiest City. I'm your host, Will Melton. Today we have Beth Weisbrod from ChamberRVA, and we're going to talk about the young people who are in this community from colleges who are deciding what to do next in their life and why we want to keep them. We're also going to talk about how ChamberRVA is working to make our community healthier in all the ways. So I'm excited about today's show, but before we dive in, America's Healthiest City is a 10-year initiative and community partnership to make Richmond region the healthiest in America by 2033. Please visit americashealthiestcity.com to check out the ideas board, submit your ideas, leave comments on the ideas. And if you represent a business, a nonprofit, an academic institution, or a government agency, please consider becoming an ambassador. We don't ask much. We just ask that you put your strategic decisions through the filter. How will this make our community healthier? So without further ado, Beth, welcome to America's Healthiest City. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Will. It's good to be here.
Yeah, well, I was excited when I found out that I was going to be interviewing you because you have been an impactful individual in our community, and you continue to have an impact through ChamberRVA. So why don't we just go with the softball question and let you tell us a little bit about first, when did you move to Richmond, and how did you end up at ChamberRVA?
Wow, yeah. So I moved here in 2001 with my husband and 2 children, and quickly put down roots because we immediately sort of fell in love with our neighborhood and our proximity to the river and all the things that Richmond is about. My journey to ChamberRVA has been an interesting one. Not sure which job to exactly highlight, but probably my 10-year stint with Virginia Capital Trail Foundation is probably the most pertinent. Ran that nonprofit in partnership with VDOT to build the Virginia Capital Trail, which I'm super proud of. Interesting job. It had never been done before in our region, a big, long excursion length trail like that. So it was a lot of trying to convince people what it was we were trying to do, and that it wasn't a terrible idea, and that it would enhance the community in a really positive way, and encourage people to get outside and move their bones and get some sun and exercise and all those things.
So were you there from day one once that propped up?
There was an individual who created the organization, actually based it in Williamsburg. And then as it began to grow and fundraising was needed, they decided to make a change. And I was lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time and got the call. And
did you end up staying on through the completion of the trail as well? That must have been very rewarding.
Cut the ribbon in 2015, hugely rewarding. It was not coincidentally right around the big 2015 bike race that actually helped us finish it in time, knowing that the eyes of the world were going to be on Richmond, and we wanted that done. So I stayed on for a couple more years just to make sure we got some good maintenance structure in place, and then it was time to move on. Yeah.
And then you got into consulting.
I did. I got a call from a group in Norfolk working on the Elizabeth River Trail. Wonderful group of people and a really beautiful trail, and they've done some great things. So I helped them structure their capital fundraising, and it was fun. It was a ton of fun. And so I did a little bit more of that. A lot of trail organizations have big ideas, but not a lot of money. So I decided it was time to see if I could get myself back into trouble, and saw the opportunity at the chamber. And here I am.
So those first two were public-private partnerships, is that right?
That's correct.
So, America's Healthiest City is a community partnership. Can you speak a little bit to why is it so important that a public-private partnership exists for some of these things? Like, what's the utility of that, and kind of tell us your experience with it.
So I learned a lot in those 10 years in partnering with the state on this project, but it's a model that helps raise private money to enhance or create a public amenity. And so where the state, or even some of the money came from the Federal Highway Administration for the trail, where they perhaps didn't have the funds, or it was directed to certain things, we were able to raise private money to do other things that makes a trail great. So again, I'm a firm believer in a public-private partnership to enhance a public amenity so that it's more than it could be if it were just strictly public funds.
Well, I'm in awe. I haven't ridden the whole trail. I have gotten, down it a ways. I'm not a professional rider, so one of these days, when I've got time. So you are now at ChamberRVA. You're the vice president of, I didn't catch the
talent and workforce.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about what your role entails now, and
Sure.
And kind of how you have an impact today.
Okay. I think one of the reasons I got hired was my experience in bringing stakeholders together around a common challenge and a common cause, and making sure we got the passion and the expertise in one room to make something good happen. And that's what I'm seeing with the RVA Now program. It's right around 3 years old. And so 2 of those years were pandemic years, which created a whole new challenge. But essentially what we're trying to do is ensure that students who are educated in the region at least consider the Richmond region when they're looking for that first full-time job to start off their career. What we've discovered is a lot of these college students, aren't aware of the current Richmond. A lot of their perceptions are outdated, both as it relates to their career potential here, as well as the quality of life here. So we have a lot of assets that we deployed towards students that update them on both of those things. There's lots of career opportunities, and our quality of life here is award-winning. We know that. There's a lot of great things to do, especially if you're young.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about what some of those wins are from your perspective, because I imagine the whole list. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about the Chamber's vision, and I won't make you try to remember this from memory, so I'll read it for the audience's sake. The ChamberRVA's vision is: we are change agents rallying every day to do the hard things that will create a more connected, prosperous, healthy, and equitable community. That's a lot, that's committing to a lot. It's a big vision. Can you speak a little bit to kind of how you see that vision playing out, both through your work and maybe some of the other things that Chamber's doing?
Sure. So we represent the business community, and everything we do is to create a business-friendly environment. So there's a lot of tentacles to that vision and that work. The Chamber's programming, we start with, if we're looking at sort of an age continuum, we have a program called Mission Tomorrow that is designed to get 8th graders aware of all the different potential pathways to a career that are mostly non-traditional, and may take them into the trades. And so that is a real sort of leveler when it comes to students that may be from disadvantaged environments, where they can see what's out there beyond their own 4 walls. Then with our talent retention, we focus on all majors, any type of career path that a student may be interested in, any problems in connecting an employer with a student population, so that not just the big boys and girls are the ones that are noticed and connected. both relative to corporations and high achieving versus students that are part of the general population. So I think there's a lot of good work going on there that the Chamber is really proud of. We also have, once you get into the working world, we've got leadership programs, we've got mentorship programs to help develop young professionals in a way that perhaps may not be available at their specific employer or in their circumstance in life. So, and then we kind of just keep going from there.
You're listening to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1, part of the Mike King Biz Radio Network. We're speaking today with Beth Weisbrod from ChamberRVA. Weisbrod. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
You think I'd have that right? Yeah, you think I have that right by now? So anyhow, Vice President of I did this again. Vice President of
Talent and Workforce.
So let's talk more about the business community here. A healthy community. The chamber's interested in a healthy community, not just healthy businesses. Why would a chamber be interested in a healthy community?
So I can speak from my own personal experience and my own sort of hierarchy of needs, let's say. Healthy people create a healthy workforce, and a healthy community is full of healthy people, and that will attract other companies who want to come live here. If they see people who like where they live and are actively embracing all of the quality of life amenities that are available to them. I know, personally speaking, I'm a huge fan of our outdoor amenities, the trails around the river, and I'm a big mountain biker, and know that when I'm able to get out there and do the things I love, I'm a much better worker. So it all comes back to, I think, creating a healthy business environment when you've got a young, vibrant workforce that are all out there enjoying life. I think that bodes well for the business community.
Well, I think we have a lot of indicators that our community is growing. Usually communities that aren't healthy, aren't desirable, aren't growing. And so lots of things there. Why don't you, for those of who might be listening, who may not spend a lot of time, in the heart of the city, or maybe aren't as familiar with the metro, or might have that perception that some young people, kind of bring to the community. What is it that you would say really makes Richmond stand out, and might be maybe some hidden gems that people that have been here for a while might not know about?
I'm biased. It's the river and everything around it that will bring you to it, no matter your age, your ability, or your interest. The Tyler Potterfield Bridge, for example, that was a big democratizer. Is that a good word? That opened up the river to people who weren't just avid mountain bikers or avid hikers, or knew the secret places to park so you could access it. I've seen such an explosion of people and diversity since that bridge has been built. And people have, I think, a natural attraction to the river. You can't cross that bridge and be grumpy, and especially if you start on the side where the city is, and then you go back and you see our beautiful skyline and you feel the river beneath you and the wind, and it's all, I think, a very positive thing. So I think that distinguishes us from a lot of other cities, this huge, giant, very fast moving river. Denver has a river, but it's about this big, and Denver's a great city, nothing against Denver, but I think the fact that we've got this natural, wonderful destination right downtown makes us different.
Well, I'm happy that you mentioned the Potterfield Bridge, because I happened to be watching From Stress to Happiness on Netflix the other day, and it's a good documentary about mindfulness and really kind of addressing some of the issues that I think we're seeing in society today. And one of the components that they were talking about is sort of the nature, the aspect of nature that gives us awe. Seeing something new and getting that vibe. And I was thinking about what are some of the natural phenomena that I experience in my life that give me that sense of awe. And when I cross the teapot, whether I'm walking or on my bike, that moment that you hear the rush of the river underneath your feet, it's like being in the clouds. There's something, I feel it right now just talking about it. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Well, I'm a big believer, not to get too trippy, but I'm a believer that we're part of the natural world. And every time we're close to nature that is raw, we all feel it. So yeah.
Well, I want to go dig up the statistics on that, the science, because I think more and more we're seeing evidence that planting your own garden or even just having indoor plants is beneficial to our mental health. And we're spending a lot of time talking about mental health. I've been talking to a lot of men about mental health. You said something that I really like, and that is being out in nature and doing the things that you love make you a better worker. I know I didn't prepare you for this question, but can you talk a little bit more about that? Some people call it work-life balance. I call it life balance. Work is part of life. Like, can you speak to what's the importance of that for you?
So for me, this is interesting. The chamber has an office in a high rise on the 17th floor, which in my career is kind of new, reporting to an office and having to stay there from 9 to 5. I'm usually an out and about kind of person where I'm, historically had meetings, done on-site things and not spent a ton of time in an office. So since I've been at the chamber, it's been really important for me to counteract that with purposefully getting outside. So I go to Forest Hill Park, I go to North Bank and Buttermilk and move my bones, whether it's on my bike or whether I hike. And I feel just an absolute sense of peace and calm. And whether it's at the beginning of my day or at the end, it's something I have to do to get through my week.
Well, I don't get out enough personally. I spend a lot of time. I move around a lot, so I'm kind of like what you used to be. But I also sit in front of a computer a lot too. So it's kind of, I wish I could do a better job. Actually, somebody in the fitness world says, "Oh, what are you doing for your health?" And I said, "Well, my doctor said I need to exercise more." And he said, "This is a bit of a curb your enthusiasm moment." But I do. I actually live on the north side and ride my bike. I can go straight down first. Second to first to third to fifth, and it takes me right to the river, and I can get there in about 8 minutes or something, maybe 9 minutes. So it is a real gift. I want to speak a little bit about the role of a learner. We're a community that is trying to figure stuff out. We don't have all the answers, and so Chamber facilitates something that I find to be remarkable, and I haven't been on it yet, but I'm going this year, and that's the inner city visit. I know this year's visit is to Kansas City. Can you speak about, have you been on an inner city visit before? Can you speak about what that program is and how it helps us?
It is a very rich learning experience for us on a number of levels. We do a whole lot of research in first picking the location. It has to be a city that has a few things in common with us, whether it's population size or workforce, whether it's growing or shrinking, maybe some natural similarities. But we bring business leaders and local leaders, elected officials together to do a deep dive on issues that we think are things we can do better. Transportation, housing, poverty, a lot of the issues that are common in every community that needs solving. So while we oftentimes get some very valuable takeaways as a group and as individual, business leaders, everyone has the little nuggets they're looking to take away. But I think one of the biggest upsides of ICV is just the time together where you're, perhaps I remember we went to some place in Columbus, Ohio, and we were bowling, and I was bowling beside some bank presidents and other folks that I normally wouldn't have time to get to know in that context. So, it's like all of our titles and our images fall by the wayside, and we're just people out enjoying each other. And that builds some real strong relationships. And for the work that we all do, that's very important in our success. And I think as a region, those relationships are critical. Like, people love to say that Richmond has a problem with various regions getting along and working together. But to see everyone there, having a good time, sitting at dinner and maybe heading out afterwards to have fun is, I think, a real strong upside to that event.
Well, and that's not the only thing that Chamber does to support regionalism. I have a perception on this. I imagine you do too. I mean, can you speak to that? Because that's a perception that, obviously we want to work to dispel if it's not true. Um, how do you see the trend in regional collaboration?
So, in the work that I do, I have to make sure that we're reaching all of our higher ed institutions, including Virginia State down in Petersburg, Randolph-Macon up in Ashland, and then all of our employers, so that they know, with the 74,000 college students we have in our region, how best to be noticed by them and how best to present themselves and their opportunities in a way that would encourage them to stay. So it doesn't matter where they are or how big, we need to make sure they're in the game. So we look at the region as a whole, and all of our programs do the same.
This is ESPN Richmond 106.1. You're listening to America's Healthiest City. I'm Will Melton, your host, and we have Beth Weisbrod today from ChamberRVA, and we're talking about workforce development and the business community's interest in building a healthier community. So I want to go and kind of go outside a little bit and talk about some needs that you might have. I didn't prep you for that one, so I'll come back to that. I want to talk about some ideas, and I want to talk about some people, who you see as making an impact. But before I do that, I just want to reiterate, you can go to americashealthiestcity.com and check out our ideas board. It's a place where anybody in the community can submit an idea, big or small, that any one person or group or the entire community can adopt to help move us in the direction that we need to go. You'll see that there's an idea on there right now about the problem that we have with traffic lights sinking and being slow, and the emissions problem that causes. That was enhanced by an article that got added to the comments that talked about AI as a potential solution to solve, sort of those delays and to eliminate some of those emissions. So those are some small ways that we can do this to kind of prime you and the audience. Have you thought about this question at all? Do you have any suggestions that we might be able to put onto the ideas board?
On how to make the region a healthier place?
Yeah. Like how could an individual or a group of folks who want to make a difference, do something that can actually make things measurably better?
Okay, so I have an example of a guy who's doing just that. His name's Brian Bell, and he runs a nonprofit in his spare time. This isn't even his job, and he doesn't get paid a dime for this, but Keep Virginia Cozy. And this young man is responsible for over 100,000 pounds of litter being removed from around the James River and elsewhere in our region since 2018. He does it out of passion and this drive to make us a cleaner city and a healthier city. And right now he's center stage for me because I just met him not that long ago, and I just think, who does this? Who spends so much of their free time getting groups out to the river or wherever they want to go? He'll go wherever. And the chamber just did a trash cleanup with him right on the far side of the Teapot Bridge on the Manchester side. And we got over 100 pounds of garbage from that little spot. And it's just such a profound action to me that he is not just complaining about the river being or the litter, sorry, he's getting out there and making a big difference. So to me, anyone who is actually proactive and intentional about the things they do, that leaves a mark, a good positive mark. I mean, we've got Venture Richmond, we've got sports backers, we've got all these groups that combine to make Richmond an active city. And so for me, that's great. But there's so many other things.
Well, I was looking at pictures on Instagram of you guys with your trash cleanup, and it's funny you mentioned the word intentionality, because I could literally see the intentionality in the picture, because you guys were putting trash in reusable bags. I guess they were like grain sacks or something like that.
Yeah, he gets them from the breweries, hops, old hops bags, and he cleans them when we're done. And he has gloves and grabbers that he's gotten donated from Lowe's. Maybe I should probably get the right company, but he goes and he asks for these things, and then he goes and takes them home and he washes them himself.
Oh,
I just think that's really cool.
And then what's he do for his day job? Do you know?
He is the shoe representative for Hoka.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna have to get Brian on this show. I think he
Yes,
sounds like
he's
a
good man.
I'm gonna have to go and clean up some trash. Actually, I'm gonna be doing a walking tour this Thursday.
Take some bags with
Filming.
you.
Yeah, well, we're gonna be filming litter. The point is to show the single-use plastic bottles that are laying around. I was kind of figuring out my shot list, and we were I was like, I'm really afraid that I'm going to go and pick all these locations and we're not going to be able to find any garbage. And I was like, okay, well, let me do a test. I was thinking about this. I left my house in my car. I got one block down the street and I saw a plastic bottle sitting on the side of the road.
It's everywhere.
I got out of my car and I found two more. Just standing there, this is my neighborhood. And so I know we're not going to have a problem finding this, and we have to raise awareness for it because, I think the thing is like everybody gets to see it all cleaned up when they see the pictures of everybody doing that work. It's really hard you see it in bulk in those bags. It's just really hard to imagine.
And what you don't see is how good we all feel that we helped get rid of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and I just hope that, that sticks, you don't just go back out there next week and it just reemerges. Now, would you say that that's like, is that really just coming down the river and coming onto land, or people just their behavior needs to be changed?
Based on what I picked up, there's stuff that landed from the bridge. There are some spray cans from those that are doing graffiti, which really hurts my heart. Discarded food containers that you could tell were just tossed over the fence.
Mm-hmm.
Beer cans, obviously, that seems to be a favorite activity down there. But no, it's stuff that Richmonders are leaving behind.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we need to talk more about that too, because I think there's some behavior shifts that we want to see. Interestingly, I live on the north side, and I didn't think I was going to find very many water bottles, because I have people that drive by my house and throw food trash out of the window. And a lot of times it's just soda, there's not a lot of water being consumed. And, that's another thing that, I hope we can take a dent in. So, all right. So on the way out, Beth Weisbrod, VP at ChamberRVA. Where can people find you? And
you can find me on the ChamberRVA.com website. That's probably the best place. My email's there.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Well, I really appreciate you coming on today. It's super important that we illuminate those who are doing good work and working to be a partner in the community to make things healthier. So thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Will. It was a pleasure.